The time is now 6 p.m. Our regular City Council meeting for January 5th, 2021 is now in session. First on the agenda is Councilmember Brown, who will lead us with the opening prayer and the pledges of allegiance to the flags of the United States and the state of Texas. Please rise.
Good evening. Welcome back from a holiday vacation here where we celebrated the birth of our Lord and entered into a new year. And with that in mind, I'd like to pray to God tonight. Heavenly Father, bless your name for our city leaders. I pray that they will not grow weary of doing good, but in due season they will reap all the things that they strive for, because your word says that you will give us the desires of our hearts. Lord, grant them the desires for the city you have made them ruler over, and I pray that you will help them to not give up. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. Honor to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Councilmember Brown. I have a special announcement. Council and guests, while seated, it's perfectly fine for you to remove your mask or while speaking at the podium. But as you approach the dais or depart the chamber, we respectfully ask that you place your face mask back on. So we'll continue with city events and announcements. Announcements of upcoming city events? There is none? Okay. Announcements and recognitions by our city manager, Dr. Brown. Okay. Announcements and recognitions by the mayor. I just want to say Happy New Year. Let's hope this year is better than the previous. All right. We'll continue with the hearing of residents. Okay, this time is set aside for any person who wishes to address the city council. Each person is limited to 3 minutes, and we ask before addressing the council, for the record, please state your name and address. As you can see, we have the 5 rules. If you vote no, the address is not required. So we'll go ahead and get started.
Mayor, point of order.
Yes.
I would like to suggest in lieu of that, maybe just say the city that they're from. Like, would that be acceptable, Councilwoman?
This is something that's one of our rules to me that's been in place since Hal Bong was the mayor, and we're suspending it because, why? Because some people don't want to give their address, and we tell the residents that they've had to, so I disagree with suspending it. If we're going to suspend it, we should get rid of it altogether, not just suspend it.
Okay. So it's the address is, once again, if you vote yes, it's to enforce the address requirement. If you vote no, the address requirement is not necessary. We'll start with Councilmember Davis. Yes. Councilmember, Mayor Pro Tem Scott.
Let me clarify, yes to suspend it or yes to reinforce?
Yes to enforce the address requirement.
No.
Okay, Councilmember Whitaker.
Yes.
Councilmember Dalla.
No.
Councilmember Scagliola.
Yes.
Councilmember Hayward.
Yes.
Councilmember Brown. Okay, the address requirement is necessary, and I just want to point that the rules and procedures reference page number 14, Article 12, Section 12.2. It is required that you provide your name and address. And we have an ordinance in case you question the enforcement of this request. Ordinance number 19M29.
Mayor,
Okay.
do have a question. It says you need to provide your address. Doesn't necessarily mean you need to verbalize your address. If the address is present on the sign-up sheet that you have, just for clarification, wouldn't that be providing an address? I think the city secretary needs to keep tally of those who speak before the council, and I believe that's the reason for the rule.
Is the address provided on these?
Verbalize it.
Ms. Dennis, what's a clarification on the address requirement? If it's written here, is it necessary that it's announced? Okay. Yes, that is correct. 3 individuals did not place an address. Okay.
I do like, may I speak, Mayor? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, I do like that idea, Councilman Scagliola, and I like it a lot if we can do that, just because, oh, she's shaking. Well, I do.
Well, the issue has already been voted on, that the address requirement was necessary. I think it was
Yes, sir.
confirmed, so while speaking at the podium, your address will be required. All right. Okay, so we'll go ahead and continue with the hearing the residents. First, go ahead, Mayor.
If I could just take a moment and address the rule of why some of us might not feel comfortable giving our address. I mean, I'm fairly certain it's obvious to all of you, and if it's not, it should be. Some people don't feel safe giving their address. What with all the vandalism, rioting, looting. I mean, just last week, a congressperson's house got vandalized. You really want us giving our address? Fine, but are you going to pay to remove the spray paint? Are you going to pay to replace windows? No. That's why some of us are scared to give our address. That's why I really feel like you should vote on that again and take that into consideration. Take the thoughts of your constituents into consideration.
Well, thank you for your comments. We'll go ahead and move on.
Yeah. I wanted to talk today a little bit of history, a little bit of hypocrisy, and a little bit of expectation. I'm going to start out in this meeting. We start with a prayer. Prayer to what God? Do you acknowledge Allah? Do you acknowledge Baphomet, Tiamat, any of the other gods of other faiths or religions? No. You judge yours as the highest and best. But our Constitution dictates that you acknowledge all religions. If you want to have a prayer at the beginning of your meeting, you should do so, but at least acknowledge everyone else. I don't pray to your God, and I'm offended that you would think, oh, well, my God's better than every God, so everybody has to pray to my God. No. Secondly, you know why you say the pledge to the American flag and the Texas flag? It's because in 1861, Texas seceded from the Union. You remember why? Well, it's because they wanted to join the South in the Civil War. They wanted to keep their slaves. In 1919, well, let's start with 1910 in Slocum, Texas. Between 8 and 22 black men were killed, probably much more. 1916 Waco, 1917 Houston, 1919 Longview. In 1998, James Byrd was dragged, killed by white supremacists. You don't acknowledge that in history. Why? Because it's whitewashed. History is often written by the victors. And unfortunately, for a lot of natives and people of color, the victors are the ones with the guns. But right now, we're living in a time when everybody has guns. You see school shootings, riots, looting from both sides. You could change something, but you won't. The hypocrisy of it is that Texas is full of proud losers. Each and every one of us, proud losers. We celebrate our loss. We celebrate our hypocrisy and the fact that we think we're better because we lost. My expectations aren't good. I don't expect you to change anything, because you won't. Can't. You're too proud of losing. That's all I have to say.
Mayor Pro Tem, who's next?
I beg your pardon, I was very engaged. I'm so sorry, Mayor. Forgive me. Mandy Moore?
Hi, my name is Mandy Moore. My address is 1653 North Santa Clara, 78124. The last time I was here, I kind of got a little emotional. I think we can all understand the emotional side of this. I had written out a speech, and I got a little flustered, and then I got cut off, and you don't cut off a woman. As my husband said last time, I told y'all I'm white, so you're going to listen to me. The unfortunate thing is, I kind of agree with him. I did kind of say that, because y'all don't listen to your people of color in this town. Let me ask y'all one question, one simple question. What does humanity mean to y'all? Because we're all humans here, right? I don't see any lizard people up here. Unfortunately, there are Uncle Toms, but we all bleed the same. And the Uncle Toms actually reinforce the fact that we're all humans here. We all make mistakes, every single one of us, including the officers that are the reason for us being here in the first place. But all we're asking is that you hear us out. All we're asking is that you actually have a conversation with us about it, because you've listened to us several times. I'll give y'all that. You respectfully sat there quietly and listened to us. Some of us have listened more than others. She's over there on her phone. Some of us have listened more respectfully. But we want a back and forth conversation. We don't want to speak to a brick wall anymore. We want y'all to put this on your agenda. You need to change the training. I read that they've gone back to training, but they're just going to reinforce the same thing that they've already learned. What is that going to help? I'm a mom. My kids are over there. And if y'all came to my door and attacked my son like y'all did Zakiya Rayford, I would react in the same exact way his dad did. I might actually, as evidenced last time, get a little more emotional than his dad did. But I feel that as a white woman, I wouldn't be treated the same way his father was. And that is not all right. So all I'm asking is that y'all have a conversation with us. Don't just sit there as a brick wall and listen, because I don't feel like y'all are hearing us. I don't feel heard. And I feel like your job that you were voted into is to actually hear us, to actually listen, to actually have a conversation. I've been told that some people here won't even meet with us one-on-one. As a Democrat, you won't even meet with us. You won't even allow us. You're just like, nope. Just listen. Just have a conversation with us about this. Put it on the agenda, please. Thank you.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, who's next?
Yes, sir. Next up, we have Maggie Titterton.
Good evening, Council. Happy New Year. I started to make the list of the things that I wanted to let you all know of what was going on at the chamber, and it just got too long, so let me do a little recap. I'm sure you all are getting the notices. We're trying to get everybody on the calendar invites, but we do have this Friday the ribbon cutting for Schertz Auto. Very excited at 11:03. I know Mark Roberts is very much looking forward to that and everything being done and going forward. Also, we have a couple more plaque presentations. We have a ribbon cutting on the 22nd with Duncan, which is in Cibolo. As we are going forward into the new year, well, actually, let me back up. As we ended December, it was really exciting in the fact that there were so many good things that did happen. Our young professionals group actually went out and they gave presents. They adopted 4 families, got presents for all the kids, fed them, gave them not only Thanksgiving dinner but Christmas dinners, and this was all the monies that were raised from the Shred Day that we did earlier last year. And so we're scheduling another one on April 10th to be at the Chamber House again, and it'll be for Schertz, Cibolo, Selma residents, as well as members of the Chamber. And they haven't said who they're going to do the benefacting of, but I'm assuming it probably will be RACAP again. They really need some help during this time of feeding, and there's a lot of extra needs for food. So, but thank you all for that, and for not only getting the word out, but for just being there and letting us shred your stuff and donating. Want to give a special shout out to Gil and Mr. James and all the people within the development services and permitting. DOS Audiology has moved their location from 5000 Schertz Parkway to their new location that's like a stone's throw from the chamber offices. And they just had some hiccups going on. It's coming up to the end of the year. Things are going on and stuff. And Gil and Brian and all their team, they pretty much moved heaven and earth to kind of meet the deadlines because DOS had to be out of their building by the end of the year. And so thank you so much, Brian, and if you could pass it on to Gil and everyone else. It was really, really great because it was the 11th hour and they just pulled it out. And last, we do have our Health and Wholeness Fair coming up on the 30th of this month at the Schertz Civic Center. It's a partnership we share with the city of Schertz. We realize that going forward into 2021, we have to create our own new normal. And that new normal is we need to start having events, but we need to cut them in half. We need to be safe. We need to take temperatures. We need to wear our face masks. We need to create new measures that we can start living again and assuming things that we used to do, but I realize we have to be very careful in doing it. So this health and wholeness is going to look a little bit different. It's only half the vendors. It's only one of the rooms. The other room we're going to utilize, and we're going to have special guest speakers. Leslie Mouton is going to give her breast cancer survivor testimony. We've got Methodist Hospital Northeast, their CEO, coming to give, updates about what COVID's going to be looking like in the next coming months, the vaccination process, all those things. Another presentation on Alzheimer's and dementia, and I am done. January 30th, 10 to 1 p.m. Thank you.
One moment. Mr. Mayor, I know we've heard it 1,000 times, but could we have you state your address for the record?
Oh, I'm so sorry. Maggie Titterington, 1730 Schertz Parkway.
I am so sorry, I overlooked that.
I didn't realize it.
All righty. Next up, we have Dana Elridge.
Dana Eldridge, 2628 Gallant Fox Drive, Schertz, Texas. I want to start this off. I was appointed several years ago to be part of the Schertz Housing Authority Board. Found out that on December 21st, we had a real serious situation occurred down there at about 2:30 in the morning. Mr. Brown, you should be extremely proud of your staff and how they stood up and helped the folks down there. For over 48 hours, they were without gas for heating or for cooking. Down in our public housing area down here, somebody in a truck ran a stop sign across Schertz Parkway, ran over the main gas meter for the property. Appreciate all the help that your staff did. Please pass it on to them if you would, please. Very much appreciated. The other thing I wanted to talk about a little bit was training. Last several meetings, we've had several people up here talk about how they've been trained in the military, got to do all kinds of stuff. I was in the military. I went through training. I worked for the post office after I got out of the military. I went through training. I've retired now. I'm going through training. I had to sign up for a Medicare Plus plan. I had to go through training. I have trained that entire time also. I have trained people while I've been in those situations. The most important job I had was training my children. My wife and I went for a walk the other day, and I saw a little thing out in the middle of the street. It said, "Be careful, children at play." It's a little green thing people put out in the street. Well, when I drive down in my neighborhood, It's a habit long learned in the military. I don't drive much more than 10 or 15 miles an hour, if that, because there's kids playing in the street. Even with this sign, there was nobody around to train that child to be careful. He came out, I was walking, but he came out between two cars. If I'd have been driving, that would have been extremely serious situation. Our police constantly go through training. The problem that we're having is the fact that we're not having parental training to teach the kids how to properly handle situations. That's really all I wanted to get up here and say, but we all train every day of our life. You, as the new mayor, have gone through some serious training, I'm sure, learning the job. Each of us in our positions go through training. So that's just my statement.
Oh,
Okay.
and next up, we have Jack Miller.
I'll just let you know the time's up. I handed out a package. Everybody got it. It's the training record for Chavarria, Officer Chavarria from T-Close State. This is what the city released to me. You have one, and everybody has one. I just want to make sure everybody. You don't have one, Mr. Brown? Can I give one to Mr. Brown?
Yeah. Name and address, sir.
I don't want to do that.
Yes, I.
Okay, name and address. Yes.
Yes, sir.
My name is Jack Miller. Currently, I'm homeless. I'm trying to establish an address. And Mayor, if you would gladly share your address with the public, I'll establish my residency at your house. I'll have a cot. It'll be halfway on the sidewalk so as not to block it, and halfway in your yard, because it's not trespassing unless I fully enter your yard. If you don't want to do that by the next council meeting, I will have an address established. It'll be either yours, the police chief's, or one of your addresses in council. If anybody would like to share with me your address, we can get that done and I can provide you one right away. But currently, I am homeless. May I begin talking? I'm working to establish residency, and I hope that the fact that I'm homeless doesn't prevent me from speaking publicly. Yeah, the time
Give me
shouldn't be
3
going,
minutes
we're
to
doing
decide here.
Yeah. I mean, with all due respect, please.
Should we make an exception on this?
I'm okay with
No. Oh,
Mayor,
no.
we voted that you have to have an address. He needs to give an address. Those are rules that we've passed, and we should
Council has made it
follow
What
them.
about homeless people? What address should they use?
a shelter address, if you can provide
I'm
it.
not at a
Yes, sir.
shelter yet. I just got kicked out right before the meeting
Well,
in my house.
then
I don't even own the house, so I'm homeless.
I'm not going to allow you to speak, sir, but thank you for showing up.
Where to go?
Well, thank you for showing up,
How about
and
200 North Mile, San Antonio, Texas, 78205.
okay.
That's the Bexar County Jail, because that's probably where I'm going to be at tonight, as soon as I'm done speaking. Okay? How
We'll
about
accept that.
that? Okay, thank you. All right, can we get the time reset? It's like 56 seconds left.
No, it still went on, sir.
So, we were discussing the address thing. Are y'all really going to run the time while y'all are discussing my address?
Please, we're wasting
I have 3
time.
minutes and not 2 minutes, because we're already, I mean, it's counting down. It says 41, 40, 39,
Please
38.
continue, sir. Please go ahead.
Is there going to be 3 minutes on here?
No,
Because it was like 1 minute and 20 seconds when I walked up.
go ahead, sir.
So I don't get 3 minutes?
Well,
I mean, when I walked up, it was like 1 minute, 29 seconds counting down. And Councilwoman Whitaker brought that up, that the time was going
go
out.
ahead and start, sir. I'll give you your 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yes, the time started already on my watch.
Okay, thank you. So Schertz police concluded their investigation and they found one policy violated, and that was about being polite. I have been asking for that policy. The city is still fighting releasing that to me. But luckily, one of your police officers that really cares gave it to me anyway. And I actually got it just before I headed down here today. And in 5 minutes, I identified 8 policies that were violated. 8. I'll be providing everybody with a copy of just those 8 policies and the additional ones I find in the future. I'll email it to all of you guys. The police department only found 1. They also did not find that Officer Finney was speeding prior to stopping Zeke Rayford. She was speeding. She was exceeding the speed limit. You guys collect $80,000, $100,000 a year from citizens for speeding, but she was speeding and the police didn't find that. You can't blame me for saying the police are ignoring stuff and probably trying to cover it. You just can't blame me for feeling that way. I wish I could report something different. Violating laws. The Fourth Amendment protects against unreasonable search and seizure. The marijuana charge was dismissed because the officers illegally searched his backpack. They did not have probable cause to search his backpack. You guys need a lesson on that, and I can explain it to you. I'll gladly meet with you and explain you why that charge was dismissed. But the DA said it was because they did not have probable cause. And one of your rules requires them to follow the law, and searching someone without probable cause is not following the law. It's very easy, basic stuff. Officer Chavarria has not had taser training since 2015. That's what I found. You're required to have taser training every year. I work in the healthcare industry. If I don't have CPR training every 2 years, they will not let me step foot on the clinic floor. He should not have been carrying a taser. In the training packet I handed you, you'll see there the last time he had electronic control device training was in 2015. He hasn't had any training since 2019. Most of his training is around tactics, handgun training, SWAT, basically how to hurt people. He did have cultural diversity training about a year ago. Cultural diversity training, I've been through it as a police officer. It teaches you that African Americans, and I'm going to speak in vernacular that everyone here on council can understand, Negroes. That Negro culture, they talk loud, boisterous sometimes, and people often confuse that, white people often confuse that with being aggressive and threatening, but it's not. That is their culture, and police are taught to recognize that. There's some other laws. So I don't want the police to think that these are still laws. Some other laws that apply to Negroes. Did you guys know that not even 60 years ago, and most of us are not 60, that Negroes could not swim in the same water as whites?
Time's up, sir. Thank you.
It still says 7 seconds. Yeah, it had 7 seconds. I don't know. We should do it. Oh, and by the way, black people do not have to calm down in public. And tonight, I'm going to be more aggressive and more loud than Mr. Redford was when he was told to calm down or he was going to get it. And not you or anyone.
All right, Ms. Dennis. Ms. Dennis, is there any hearing the residents that was submitted in writing? Just to address your question, I'm just going to address your question. I made myself clear to the gentleman, by my watch we will start. So there's no reason to question whether or not that beep went off, but this watch went off. And it was made clear to the gentleman. So we'll continue. I'm not here to argue your point, sir. It was made clear to the gentleman. Okay, Ms. Dennis, is there any hearing the residents submitted in writing? All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on to consent agenda items. Consent agenda items are considered self-explanatory, and information packets are provided to council and available for public viewing. These items require no separate discussion unless requested by council. Item number 1, the minutes. Consideration or action regarding the approval of the minutes of our regular meeting December 8th, 2020, and our special workshop session meeting on December 9th, 2020. Item number 2, resolution number 21R01. Consideration or action approving a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, authorizing EMS debt revenue adjustments, utility billing debt revenue adjustments, and Schertz Magazine debt revenue adjustments for certain inactive outstanding receivables and other matters in connection therewith. Item number 3, ordinance number 21M02, consideration or action approving an ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, reaffirming the Council Code of Ethics, appealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict with this ordinance and providing an effective date. Council, do any of the following consent agenda items need to be removed for separate action? If none, okay, if no comment, is there a motion to approve consent agenda items 1, 2, and 3?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Yes.
Okay.
Hey,
The motion was made by Councilmember Dalla and second by Councilmember Brown.
no, it's Hayward. But it doesn't matter.
Oh, I am so sorry.
Whatever.
Yeah. Councilmember Dalla made the motion, Councilmember Brown second. Okay, Council, any other comments? If not, let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. All right, we'll move on to discussion items and action items. Item number 4, board, commissions, and committees. Appointment, reappointments, resignations, consideration or action approving the resignation of Mr. Bob Cantu from the Reinvestment Zone Number 2 Board of Directors, reappointing Mr. Michael Dalla and Mr. Gary Inman and filling in the current vacancy. Okay, this is up for discussion by council. Ms. Dennis, if you lead us off.
Yes, Mayor and Council, I did put in your packet the information that who had requested to be placed on the TERS board to fill the vacancy of Mr. Cantu. Allison Hayward had expressed her interest, as well as Councilmember Whitaker, and former member Councilmember Larson did send me an email today, and he said, "Sorry for the delay. I have been out of pocket for a few weeks over the holidays dealing with family stuff." He will be back in town later this week, and he will fill out a form, requesting that he be placed on the TERS board. So at this time, you had 3 candidates, available right now, and it's up to the council to vote on who you want to place as a vacancy for Mr. Cantu.
Could you name the candidates one more time for us, please?
That would be Councilmember Hayward,
Hayward, okay.
Councilmember Whitaker,
Whitaker,
and Mr. Larson, former member.
Mr. Larson.
Yes.
And we need how many positions to be filled?
Just one, sir.
Just one out of
That
the
is
3,
correct.
okay. Okay. All right, council, floor is open for discussion. We have 1 vacancy, we have 3 applicants. Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Scott?
Well, I did want to say it's a very difficult choice because all of these individuals are preeminently qualified. Can I suggest where I'm leaning toward? Is that violating protocol, or is that
No.
okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I am leaning toward Councilwoman Hayward because not only of her vast experience on city council, but that she's gotten certifications from the state, and she's super politically involved, so I'm throwing my hat in the ring for that. But not to discredit what the other ones have done.
Mayor, may I speak?
Yes.
After thinking about it, with all of the things that I have on my table, plate, whatever you want to call it, buffet, I'm going to remove myself from that, and I suggest Councilwoman Whitaker because she actually lives in the area, and that would probably be more feasible to her. And after speaking with Mr. Brian James, I think it would be something that she would want more than me. I wanted it when I first got on council, but now I've got a lot of hats that I'm wearing. I think I'm just going to remove myself from that.
All right, well, thank you, Ms. Hayward. Councilmember Dalla.
May I say thank you, Councilwoman Scott, for the recommendation. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, and I think you would be fantastic, too.
I would concur with us nominating Councilwoman Whitaker. She's the newest council member. She needs to learn a lot of how things different works with the boards and commissions. I think this is a good place, and that, you know, she's only got one committee that she's on, so let's give her some more work.
Okay. Yes, Councilmember Scagliola?
Yeah, first off, I was really sad to see Mr. Cantu's resignation. Mr. Cantu's he's been a tremendous asset to this city for a long time, and he will be missed on this particular board. I still see him occasionally, but yeah, I think it'd be a wonderful opportunity for Councilwoman Whitaker to be on the board.
Okay, any other comments? Any other comments? No? Just want to say, yes, I want to send my appreciation to Mr. Cantu for serving on the board. We really appreciate all the time that he dedicated to serving our city. And with that, we have Councilmember Whitaker and Councilmember Larson up again for this board. So is there a motion on the floor to like to make a motion?
It's not correct.
Yes.
It's Councilman Dalla.
Oh, go ahead.
For the TERS?
Yes, for the TERS.
You said we were putting Councilman Larson?
No, there's two applicants.
The
No,
two-
Mr. Larson and Councilmember Whitaker are being considered for this. But Councilmember Whitaker, you like to say a few words?
I had a question and now I forgot, but I think it was, do I vote for this since I'm part of the?
Yes.
Okay. And I think the clarification is that Councilman Dalla is already on and he's just renewing
Being
his
reappointed.
spot as
You're
well
filling
as
the vacancy.
Mr.
Yes.
Inman. So we're, yes, right.
I second the motion.
Was there?
I was going to say, Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the resignation of Mr. Bob Cantu and the reappointing of myself and Mr. Gary Inman, as well as filling the current vacancy with Ms. Whitaker.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilmember Dalla, second by Councilmember Davis. And Ms. Dennis, did you receive we are reappointing Councilmember Dalla.
Yes.
And Mr. Gary Inman, accepting Mr. Cantu's resignation and appointing Councilmember Whitaker.
That is correct.
Okay. No other comments? Let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, next we have a public hearing. Item number 5, resolution number 21R03, a resolution by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, accepting a petition for voluntary annexation within the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the City of Schertz, approximately 142 acres of land located 3,500 feet southwest of the intersection of Doran Lane and Bell North Drive, Comal County, Texas. Okay.
All right, good evening, Council. So as the Mayor said, this is a resolution for a petition for voluntary annexation for around 142 acres, as you had described, Mayor Gutierrez. So what you're looking at here is just the simple voluntary annexation request from the property owner, Schertz 312 LLC, for the full 142 approximately acres of the subject property. So this is a public hearing notice map. The subject property's boundary is in blue here. You can see it's northwest of our current city limits. The next map should show that boundary a little clearer. You can see our city boundary here in red and an outline of the subject property here in green. So for background on this resolution, it directly pertains to City of Schertz Resolution 20R83 and the corresponding San Antonio ordinance. Both of these agreed to release the subject property from the City of San Antonio ETJ and in to the City of Schertz based on a number of conditions, one of which was that the City of Schertz, that we would start the annexation proceedings on the property within 3 months of that effective date of the ordinance from December. And so this resolution would be that first initial step of the annexation proceedings complying with that agreement. So for the annexation process, I want to be clear, so the adoption of this resolution doesn't annex the property into the city. It just allows for City Council to annex the property by ordinance at a future date. Currently, the annexation and following zone change ordinance are tentatively scheduled to be heard at the later this month at the January 26th City Council meeting, and the applicant will be requesting to zone change to manufacturing light, the same as the properties adjacent to it. With that, staff is recommending approval of Resolution 21R03, accepting the petition for voluntary annexation.
All right, thank you. All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance who would like to comment regarding this resolution? Okay, second notice for any comments? Final notice? Public hearing is closed. All right, council, floor is open for discussion.
Well,
Oh, okay, I'm so sorry. That was my first glance. I'm so sorry. All right, Councilmember Brown.
Yeah. No, I just want to support economic development on this. They've been working on this program for, what, about 3 years now, Nick? Something like that? So, and had jumped through hoops and whatnot, so I think it's going to add a lot of value to our commercial area over there, so great work, and thank you all for making it happen.
Hey.
yeah, I just want to say terrific work. I'm all for increasing the size of the city, even if it's only at like a quarter of a square mile at a time. But anyway, if there's no objection, I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution number 21R03.
Second.
Okay, council, any other comments? Okay, we have a motion to approve resolution number 21R03, made by Councilmember Scagliola, second by Councilmember Hayward. If there's no other comments, let's go ahead and call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. All right, we'll move on to our next public hearing. Item number 6, ordinance number 21S01. An ordinance by the City Council of the City of Schertz, Texas, amending the official zoning map by rezoning approximately 10.5 acres of land from Planned Development District, PDD, to Planned Development District, PDD. I'm sorry, maybe, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Located southeast of the intersection between Halley Chase and Halley Loop, more specifically described as Halley's Cove subdivision, units 4A and 4B, City of Schertz, Bexar County, Texas. This is our first reading.
Oh, yeah, so the notice is from PDD to PDD. It's a new zoning ordinance, but basically this is just a PDD amendment for Halley's Cove units 4A and 4B. So this is, again, a public hearing. We sent out these mailers prior to the Planning and Zoning Commission public hearing, and we had received 3 responses from the surrounding property owners in favor of the proposed zone change. So what you're looking at here is the full master plan for Halley's Cove. You can see units 1, 2, 3, and 5 up here have either been built out or they've had a final plat approved and are approaching construction. Units 4A and 4B highlighted down here are the subject of this rezoning application and are also the only units yet to have a final plat approved. And I'm going to zoom in right here on the left side of this, specifically on these 4 lots for the next slide. Getting into the purpose of the rezoning application. So during the design process for the units 4A and 4B preliminary plats, this drainage easement right here, denoted with keynote A, was required by our engineering department to be enlarged based on the design of the units, which affected these 4 lots right here. So reducing the depth from around 119 feet to 109 feet. You can see the rest of the lots within the unit 4A here have depths at 120, 121 feet, and these are now at 109. And so these 4 lots no longer meet the zoning regulations for this project property. In order to plat these 4 lots, they would have to, or the applicant is required to amend the development standards for the planned development district, and more specifically the dimensional standards. And the reason we're going through a full PDD amendment is because per the original Halley's Cove PDD amendments section, any specific changes or modifications to the dimensional standards required this full PDD amendment. So what's being changed? So it's just this simple table. So this is the current, or these are the current dimensional standards. On top, you can see that the lots are required to be 80 by 119 and have a minimum square feet area of 9,600. And so in the proposed dimensional standards, you'll see the insertion of superscript C here, and the language with the arrow pointing right down here. It says lots adjacent to the drainage easement will have a minimum lot depth of 109 feet and a minimum area of 8,720 square feet. And that 8720 number is simply just 80 width by 109 depth. And so this will account for those 4 lots that are adjacent to the drainage easement, allow them to be platted in accordance with the zoning regulations for the subject property. Looking at the comprehensive plan really quickly, the Halley's Cove Plan Development District is primarily designated as the estate neighborhood future land use, and the modification of these dimensional standards would not change the intent or character of the proposed subdivision, so it remains in conformance with the comp plan. Again, with the only modification being to those dimensional standards, and that was the required with the enlarged easement during the design process for the plats. Staff is recommending approval of the proposed zone change. The Planning and Zoning Commission met on December 9th, 2020, and also recommended approval by unanimous vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, once again, this is a public hearing. Is there anyone in attendance that'd like to address the council regarding this reference matter? Second notice? No one's moving. Final notice? Public hearing is now closed. All right, council, floor is open for discussion. Councilmember Scagliola.
I'm just wondering, the changes will only affect this particular PDD and not others in the future, or is it changing anything that the city does?
No, so this will only affect Halley's Cove, and specifically only units 4A and 4B. So this is the entire land area in the city that this is pertaining to.
I was just saying, it's rather specific, 109 feet versus 107.5 feet or something.
The reason for that is that was literally the largest it could have been with the enlargement of that drainage easement.
Sounds good. And how long from when the proposed change was asked for to tonight? How long did that process take?
From when they had
your first
zone change?
Yeah, when you were first identified.
So probably, I can look in specifically later for you, but
generic.
In the late fall, we were going through that design process for the plat. They currently have the plats in, and so this was the course of action we decided on to change the dimensional standards so they could plat in accordance with the originally approved lot number.
All right.
So
we're talking
those requirements in the
2-ish months or so.
Yeah, 2 to 3 months.
Cool. Thank you. That's all I have, sir.
All right. Councilmember Whitaker.
So with that easement, that property, the easement belongs still to the developer, is that correct? So they're just not going to be able to use that as part of a lot?
So it'll be, a privately maintained drainage easement. It won't be part of a single-family residential lot. These will be the complete boundaries of those lots.
Okay, so it's not something that the city identified the drainage easement, it's the developers that we need that extra space for the drainage, and we're going to just take it from these lots.
Right. Based on the design when they were going through that planning process, our engineering department had them enlarge it, which is the reason we're recommending approval of this, because this is the specific solution for enlarging that easement and allowing them to plat those lots with the dimensional standards.
Okay.
So we used to allow, and this may be 6-7 years ago, and prior to that, we would allow what we describe as lot-to-lot drainage. So rather than that easement being in a common lot, it would be across the back of those residential lots. And the benefit to the developer is it meant they didn't have to shorten their lot as they're doing now. The drawback to that, you can probably imagine, is over time, although a homeowner, when they buy the house, they see the documents, they know there's a drainage easement there, they forget it's there, they ignore that it's there, they do landscape work, they put sheds there, they plant things there, it silts up. And the problem then is that creates a backup for the adjacent residential home. And And so we have a lot of older areas of town where that is a problem. So council approved an amendment to the Code of Ordinances to not allow lot-to-lot drainage for residential homes. What that means is, because there are a series of steps in the process, when the zoning was done with the PDD, the developer made some assumptions about how much drainage would flow there, and thus how wide that easement needed to be. So thus the zoning got set, master plan got set. They don't finalize those drainage calculations and plan until the submittal of the final plat. And that's why it wasn't discovered till now, because the developer hadn't done those numbers to say, this is how much water's flowing there, this is how big that drainage channel needs to be, it'll be an earthen channel, and that's how big the easement is, which is why we catch these at the plat process. And that happens occasionally. I would say most master plan communities, we find something like this, and again, it's because we don't require all the engineering to be on the front end with the zoning, because the developer doesn't want to spend all the money not knowing if they'll get the entitlements. That helps us back.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Dalla.
I guess just to clarify that, for everybody else's understanding, is that because we're not allowing lot-to-lot drainage, that basically the fence line is going to be at the 109-foot mark and not on the other side of that easement, so that will be a separate area.
Separate area. It'll be owned and maintained by the homeowners association. So the homeowners association will have the responsibility of maintaining that. Because again, as you know, with our projects, those silt in over time, and if we relied on each individual property owner to try to do their own, we can never get it done.
Okay, Council, any other comments?
Make a motion that we approve the rezoning application is written there. That's ordinance 21S01.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion made by Councilmember Brown to approve ordinance number 21S01 and second by Councilmember Whitaker. Any other additional comments? If none, let's call for the vote.
Aye.
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 We have 7 ayes, no objection, motion passes. Thank you. We'll move on to our workshops. Item number 7, Chapter 30, Fire Prevention and Protection, workshop discussion related to the updated Schertz Code of Ordinance, Chapter 30, Fire Prevention Code, and local amendments related to adopting the International Fire Code 2018 edition. Okay.
Evening, Council. I'm coming to you this evening to kind of discuss what's coming up with in the 2018 Fire Code. The purpose for this presentation is to amend the current Chapter 30 of the Fire Prevention Protection Code with the ordinance, with the adoption of the 2018 edition of the International Fire Code, also referred to as the Fire Code, or IFC, in a couple of the slides that you'll see. Currently, we are using the 2012 IFC. With the adoption of the 2018, it will keep Schertz current with the ISO rating, interoperability between jurisdictions, keeping up with current technologies, interfaces, and other best practices within the state of Texas and the United States. Over the past 2 years, 3 workshops were held with local fire chiefs and fire marshals around Bexar County, Guadalupe County, Comal County, and some of those jurisdictions are up there, as you see. And with that, the conglomerate of the fire marshals got together to come up with some of these ordinances, so that way we have improvable interoperability between different agencies and different jurisdictions. Currently, the City of Universal City and us are the only 2 on that list that are not in the 2018 Fire Code. With the adoption of the new Fire Code, we'll improve community safety with the equipment challenges at large incidences, improve services to buildings and developments. This will also improve intelligibility technology when it comes to fire alarm systems that are coming out, when it comes to fire alarm systems, and help with the insurance services rating, the ISO. And currently we went to a 2.
Within the document, many things were not addressed in the 2018 code that are addressed in the were not addressed in the 2012 code that are addressed in the 2018 code. One of those items happened to be food trucks. The other different items were higher education laboratories, outdoor events, and there are many more. There's a section within this code that will remove some of the amendments we currently have. One of those being the food trucks and food tents at different events. That was an amendment done on the last code edition. Another chapter that was not in the 2012 code that we are facing every day, what Lieutenant Boney is looking at, including building, is solar panels. They address that in this code book. And also they're adding gas detection systems in Chapter 39, which happens to do with oil and gas. We don't have a whole lot of that here, but it does refer to that in this code. Previous in many group homes, they were required to install commercial fire alarm systems and sprinkler systems. In the 2018 code, they do not. And when I talk about group homes, it's kind of like an assisted living in a house. Also, additional requirements are illumination or exit lights and emergency lighting discharged from the building to a public way. Chapter 31 addresses some outdoor assembly requirements that haven't been there before. When it comes to occupancies over 1,000 more, they want a person to be a manager kind of the incident, or the facility, to help people get out. Also, they address in that chapter for the outdoors is for blocking of fire hydrants, fire lanes, having people give us a plan. So they'll have to submit to us now what they want to do of an event. It talks about weather. It talks about in case of something happens, they have a plan to get out. And currently, we kind of do that now with the city bigger events. We set up with parks and we develop those plans. One of the significant changes in the code requirement is that businesses that are an A2 occupancy, which is like a restaurant, nightclubs, and other such, that have an occupancy load of 300 or more, will be required to retrofit their buildings and add a sprinkler system. This comes from the 2003 nightclub fire, where 100 people were killed and 230 were injured. Now, this will impact a couple businesses within the city. I want to emphasize, though, it says where alcohol beverages are consumed, and that's the way if you look up there or look where it says Chapter 11, construction requirements for existing buildings, that is the exact verbiage where it says the alcohol beverages are consumed. This means businesses that have certificate occupancy will have to retrofit. However, knowing that money is tight for that kind of issue, Chief and I have had some extreme conversation with this, and due to COVID recently, is with that amendment, with this adoption, we'll give businesses 3 years. I think 3-year time is fairly enough. City of New Braunfels actually went through this with Green Hall, and Green Hall is sprinkled. They brought this code into it, and it's worked out for them. In this section, however, there's 3 different conditions when it comes to S1, S2, or F1 and S2, where it allows increase of distance traveled. What does that mean to us? It means more buildings like Amazon. When Glenn Outlaw was the fire marshal and Amazon came in, I've read the documents and I talked with Glenn. He actually did this back then, and they're just now getting it in code now, where it increases the distances for these type of facilities. Now, a couple of the things that you'll see when it comes forth is some amendment changes, and this is verbatim, but this is to change certain things in the code. When we get the code book, it leaves out the dollar amounts where it says $200 to $2,000. We have to fill in those blanks. But it also says jail time if they fail to comply with fire code requirements. It is just if they receive a citation, they go to municipal court, they don't pay their fines, they can go to jail. However, with the Sandra Bland Act, we took that jail time out of the code requirement. Now, our current requirement in the city of Schertz is a building at 10,000 square foot or bigger, it needs to be sprinkled. The fire code actually says 12. And the reason this has been put in there, this was put back in, I checked with Chief Outlaw back in 2000 when the city of Schertz went from the Southern Building Code to the International Fire Code. Because of the size of the buildings and our personnel and our city staff in the event of these fires, 10,000 square foot building was adequate that we could suffice with the personnel we have. And I believe it's still the same today. If we increased it to 12, I think we still have some challenges. However, there are some items below that are below 10,000 square foot, and that is verbatim by fire code, where a restaurant that exceeds 5,000 square foot has to be sprinkled. Mattress, that A5 is a bleacher, that S1 is for commercial vehicles, and there's a 2,500 square foot requirement for upholsteries. You got to think, you got couches, sofas, that kind of flammable items in a building, you want to save it a little bit more, so that's why you increase the square footage. Now with this also is, we run a lot of fire alarm calls, and there's two different types of fire alarm panels out there. There's an addressable and there's a zone panel. And a lot of times at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, our guys are running for a false alarm. And it says zone 1 smoke detector, where there could be 300, well not, I'm going to exaggerate, I'll say 30 to 40 smoke detectors on that one line. And it takes our guys a lot of time to try to find that one particular device. So adding into the ordinance where it is a addressable panel, which every manufacturer that does fire alarm panels has an addressable system. That way we can identify smoke detector, room 305, hallway B. Pull station, south exit door. We know exactly where we're going when we get there. Also to have occupancy notification requirements added to it. Now this is a little section in the code, but where it doesn't specify certain things. And we've ran into some issues where we've ran on some calls where we've had some small fires off of Lookout Road in some of these big box buildings. We do have fire separation walls, but nobody knew we were there. Nobody even knew why we were coming. Crews show up for a fire alarm, we're knocking on the doors, nobody knew the fire alarm was even going off. So that's why I'm recommending that fire alarm notifications upon activation of a water flow device be a requirement in Schertz. There's also a couple other things in the 2012 adoption or 2018 adoption. It comes down to lockdown plans for schools with active shooter incidences. It kind of ties in with the fire alarm panels and there's some of the other items there. We recommend when we come to y'all here soon with the amending the fire code that we will be able to get that without issues.
All right. Thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you. Council, any questions? Yes, Councilmember Brown.
Yeah, just real quick, outside of our large commercial warehouse-type buildings and whatnot, do we have a whole lot of commercial structures that these changes are going to apply to? You know, for example, consuming beverages for alcoholic beverages over 300 people. I mean, outside of the, the city things, I don't know if we have any. Do we have any bars or restaurants?
So it's where its alcohol is consumed. So that puts it the Knights of Columbus and the VFW. Those are the two buildings that I've isolated. Now, long shots.
Those are 300 occupancy though.
Those are 800.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was wondering because, you know,
VFW and Knights of Columbus.
Knights of Columbus. Okay. Those are the only.
Hold on, I've got it on my notes here, sir. Let me find it.
Yeah.
So the VFW was built in C of O in 1987 with the occupancy load of 800.
Wow.
Under the Southern Building Code, and the VFW was in 1987, and the Knights of Columbus was in 1994 with the occupancy load 800. And I've been to where those have been rented out for weddings, and you'll get 200-300 people there, and they're consuming alcohol.
No, I understand the rule. I was just wondering how many structures we actually had.
I've identified 2.
Okay. And I can see all of this being implemented for new construction, new projects without a hitch. Just that, as you said before, there's a lot of cost in retrofitting some of these places.
That's why Chief and I talked about the 3 years, giving them time to get a bid, see what it's going to cost, because it's going to be an undertaking.
Yeah.
And that way they can move through it to get that up to where, to meet code requirements.
That's all I had. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Scott?
Yes, I would recommend putting page numbers on there, because then whenever I'm asking you, it can go back when I was trying to take notes, just for future. I also had that exact same question, Councilman Brown, about and thank y'all for answering that. The new changes, besides the food trucks, you also have the outdoor pallet storage and higher education. We don't have higher education universities in the city of Schertz, but what is the outdoor pallet storage?
So it limits the amount of pallets that can be stored outside. When we get into the industrial park, we can get to certain things, and also not just outside, but also inside. So you can easily overwhelm a fire alarm system with 600-700 pallets inside. If someone goes in and intentionally sets that on fire, then you're not going to be able, the sprinkler system that's designed to not put out the fire, but to suppress it until we can get in there, it's going to overload the system, and it's not going to do its job.
Yeah, when you said that, the light bulb went on, and then I thought of Lowe's, because sometimes there's just a lot of pallets, and they are made out of wood, but I didn't get it when I was just reading through there. That's very good. Final question, a manual fire alarm and auto smoke detection are no longer required in Group R for occupancies. What are Group R for?
Those are those assisted living style residences.
So they're not required anymore?
They're not required anymore in the 2018.
Oh, wow, okay. But over R4 or R5, is that when you have 5 or more, is that what?
No, ma'am, it's just a different, so R is residential, and
Yeah.
1, 2, there's different types of residential. Could be multifamily homes, like apartments, single-family homes. Then
Why is it no longer required, do you know? I mean, that's the only thing that stuck out to me.
Yeah, so the International Fire Code is made up of several fire protection engineers, fire marshals. It's an international style code, and they have a meeting a couple times a year over the code. That's why there's the adoption every 3 years when it comes out. We're asking to adopt the 18, and the 21 is actually coming out. But I do know in the 21, I have had a chance to glance at it. Several fire marshals around the area right now are hesitant to even touch the 21 because there's a lot of issues with the 21.
Okay, thank you, that's all.
Okay, Councilmember Dalla?
Can you go back a few slides?
Which one, sir?
Not quite sure. Just kind of flip through them slowly and keep going. Let's see. Okay, right here. Yeah, back here.
Amazon?
So with some of these changes, and I don't know if these are the ones maybe, but are we going to go back and require everybody to retrofit anything that doesn't meet the 2018 standard, or just the two that we've previously talked about?
So under Chapter 11 is the existing building code, or the existing buildings requirement under the fire code, and that is the only section of it that makes us, or gives us the authority to make them retrofit. But like anything else, it has to be specifically to that A2, 300 or more occupancy, and where alcohol is consumed. I mean, you can have a church hall, but typically a church hall is not where alcohol is consumed. They may have more than 300, but it's not going to meet the requirement for the retro.
So that all the other changes then basically is going to be for new construction going
For
forward?
new construction, yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, and that all seems pretty reasonable. I'm going to struggle for a while with the retrofit requirement. You know, for those two facilities, you know, I mean, they're pretty much nonprofit entities, and we're probably looking at, from what I know of fire retrofits, we're probably looking at $400,000, $500,000 cost to these guys.
Could be.
It's going to be very substantial.
And like Worst Fest was under their retro when that building caught fire.
Yeah.
They were 2 days away from tying it in.
It's not often on here that you don't see it a lot of times where they come out that strong with retrofits like this. So that's why it's very specific to that specific type of business and occupant load and alcohol kind of all being
I brought it back up.
wrapped into that one.
Well, I guess one question that I would have, you said that one of them had a C of O with an 800-person limit.
Knights of Columbus is...
Would they have an option to reduce their occupancy load to below 300 to not have to do the retrofit?
There would be a lot of different changes to do that. They'd have to add walls. There's a lot of things they'd have to do to that building.
Just kind of...
So, I mean, if you modify it, then they have that dance floor, that open floor area, then that's what it's going to take.
Right.
I mean, the occupancy load was set up in, because I got with Gil on both of these facilities, and we couldn't find the C of O on the VFW. We found the C of O, didn't have an occupancy load. It was issued in 1987, so I don't even know what the occupancy load is. No, sir. No, sir.
I mean, that's going to be just a heck of a financial burden, yeah.
I mean, because if we got a, when I came from Seguin, they had quinceañeras at the Coliseum quite a bit, you know, and they get pretty rowdy at times. And if we had a quinceañera here, or not even that, but if we had some type of a venue to where it got to this extravagant, it would put us in that.
Thank you.
Hey, Council, any comments? Yes, Councilmember Hayward.
I was just going to ask, I guess, sort of the same question Dr. Brown had asked about modifying it, because I know that a lot of facilities, I remember back when, was it Universal City did theirs, and a lot of facilities, and I know it wasn't just consume alcohol, I think it was something else. A lot of facilities just ended up closing because they couldn't afford the retrofit, and that's just my concern with, I mean, I know it's probably a thing, but this nightclub that happened, they were doing pyrotechnics, not, you know, it wasn't like someone started a fire, and I'm wondering if it's going a little too much, because when you look at VFW and the Lions Club, I'm like, you know, I think that cost could end up shuttering their doors if they don't find something.
The only just to that, like say, I know that like the VFW has water. Knights of Columbus does not. So if they don't allow alcohol to be consumed or served on the property, then they will be exempt from this. But as soon as they start serving their service of alcohol for a wedding or whatever, then it falls back into it.
And I've been in the VFW, it doesn't look like it's going to hold that many people.
They're over 300. That's why I was bringing it up.
Okay, Council, any other comments? All right, thank you. All right, we'll move on to workshop. Item number 9, workshop discussion and update regarding the COVID-19 virus in our current ordinance number 20H18, our declaration of local disaster. Oh, Sumner? Ms. Hall?
Good evening. How are y'all today? So we're going to be going over the numbers, and we have a few other updates to include this evening. So I apologize, as we were walking out the door to come to the council meeting tonight, they did release a new set of data for Region 8. And so the numbers that are showing for Guadalupe County significantly increased, which we expected this morning. There was a backlog of data that was getting put into the system today. So right now, the number on here, the 6,998, is actually 7,613, and that active caseload is not 143, it is 454. That being said, they do expect that because that is a delayed set of data, that those numbers will go to the recovered category very quickly. So while they did come on our active caseload today, they probably won't stay there very long. So just note, as we go through this, all of the numbers are going to reflect that number that we had this morning, and it's a little different than that. For Schertz, we have a total of 1,113 cumulative and only 10 active at this point. Again, there is some backlog to that, so do expect that number is going to rise in the next couple of days. Bexar County at 100,000. with 22,379 active. Comal County at 6,545 with 873 active. I did want to point out that we have received some additional reimbursements for our CARES and CRF funding. We did submit $111,430 in reimbursements to Bexar County, and we have received that reimbursement. And then the $480,865 is inclusive of the initial 20% that we received from the state, but then we got an additional $64,000 reimbursed. The last chunk is pending, and working with the state now to finalize those reimbursements for the rest of the CARES funding that we've spent. So our active case count, as you've heard everywhere, continues to rise. In those areas, the metropolitan areas that we look at continue to go up. Again, please note that this 143 for Guadalupe County is 454 today. And these are similar to those that we discussed on the previous slide. Just continue to rise, and you'll see as we get to the hospitalization numbers that we have broken some of the numbers that we were in the middle of the summer. So the active case count, this is just specifically to Guadalupe and Comal County, a little more zoomed in notice, and this one does show that Guadalupe County has gone down, but is going to actually have been increased this week. The fatality ratio, so fortunately the fatalities have not risen for us, but the case counts do go up. So you'll notice that the percentage of fatality ratio continues to just decline, and we're under 1% for both counties. So it's almost to a point of not calculating any further, because you can see for Guadalupe County how minuscule the ratio is of case counts to fatalities. So that number has not risen recently. It went up a couple, but it has not gone up in a couple weeks. So the one thing we did want to bring up that's new tonight is that the city of Schertz is a vaccination provider, and today we did receive 500 Moderna vaccines. Tomorrow we will begin a vaccination clinic for our first responders in that phase 1A. Those will be, those will be held for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. There is a registration required. We've reached out to the first responders within the Guadalupe County and those that are EMS Schertz, the Schertz EMS contract, the service contract touches. So that includes Selma, Live Oak, Wilson County, San Marcos, Luling, and there's one more. And so all of those people have been reached out to and requested to register for their vaccination should they like to get it. And then we've gone beyond that and spoken with the long-term care facilities, which finally are getting their vaccinations from CVS and Walgreens. And then beyond that have reached out to the local physicians and dentists and those care providers around the Schertz and Guadalupe County area. So all of those people have been provided the opportunity to receive their vaccine through these next few days of vaccinations, and we'll do as many as we can within that phase 1A for this time period with the 500 that we received. Okay. So the state disaster declaration was renewed today, or yes, today's the 5th. Was renewed today, and that'll extend it for an additional 30 days, so we'll follow suit on that as well. Today you can see the daily new case counts. So today's daily new case counts are 26,500, and you can see that far exceeds where we were back in July on daily new cases. So it is concerning as we move into the hospitalization. This hospitalization rate, if you remember for the past couple of council meetings, we were hoping for this to stay below 15%. Once it goes above 15%, then we have to reduce capacity at our facilities. And it did go above 15% over the holidays, and it's staying there and continues to rise. So again, what this hospitalization number means is that this percentage, so as of the 3rd, the percentage of people in the hospital that were COVID positive patients was 20.52%. And so we will stay at our 50% reduced occupancy until we reach under 15% for a consecutive 7 days. So we'll stay at that reduced capacity until then. Hospitalizations in Bexar County, again, this is one of those things that is beyond the where we were in July. I think the July numbers was around 1260 was the high point for that, and today you can see the number of patients in the Bexar County hospital systems. Our trauma service area P is 1318. So we are exceeded that number in July with 369 in the ICU, and of those, 185 of them are on ventilation. They are getting additional staffing into the trauma service P area to assist, which allows them to open up additional beds for those COVID positive patients. But it is concerning where we're at this point. And that's all I have for you today.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hall. Okay, council, questions? Yes, Councilmember Dalla.
Just have one question about the vaccines. Knowing this is a two-injection process with the future allocations that we're getting from the state, are we somehow flagging those for the second dose or making sure we're able to provide that second dose?
We don't need to. What will happen, so when we are allotted the first round of vaccines, then the second dose is automatic. So when we got our 500 at the 28-day period, 500 more will come to us automatically.
Okay, Councilmember Whitaker.
So I think the question that I found is, how do you know if you fall in one of those categories? So let's just say I have a neighbor or someone approaches me and says, when do I get the vaccine? Is it at this point you must be approached and you're told, hey, you fall into this category, or how does one find out that they are in that category and authorized to get a vaccination?
Okay, so for us right now, and on the slide, if you can kind of see that category there is going to be your direct care hospital, long-term care, so any of your assisted facilities, assisted living facilities, residential care, that kind of thing. EMS or 911 caregivers, so that's going to include fire and PD because they assist in EMS calls, and then home health, urgent cares, pharmacies, last responders, which are your medical examiners, funeral home directors, those folks, and school nurses are in that tier 1 of phase 1A. And that's really our target audience in this first round. The 1A, which is the tier 2 for long-term care residents, long-term care facilities, those are the ones that are being handled with a federal contract with CVS and Walgreens. And so they are reaching out to those, and we verified that because they hadn't been hearing from them and we were a little bit concerned, but we did reach out to each of those facilities and they do have their clinics scheduled. So we're not concerned with them as much at this point. Phase 1B really is just a couple of categories, but we'll be in that phase for quite a while. So that's basically your 65 and older, and then anybody that's 16 and older with a list of conditions. And so if they're not in one of those 3 categories, I would say it's going to be at least spring before a vaccine is available to them.
Okay, so is this published somewhere?
Yes, this is on the DISH's website, and I can send you the link to it. It's a pretty good link too, because it also has like who's received vaccines, so who they could reach out and try and get a vaccine. Some of the areas, I'm sure you saw the news release where University Hospital already moved into phase 1B because they had vaccinated their 1As, and so they opened it up to 1B, and some of the places in San Antonio have already moved into that. We're not there because our first responders haven't gotten their vaccines yet. So if you point them to this DISH's website, it offers them a place to go look at vaccine providers, and they can attempt to try and get their vaccine in another area. We're just not quite there yet.
Oh, okay. And then I had one other question. So if you've tested positive for coronavirus at any point, does that affect your receiving the vaccine or your need to receive it?
So they recommend at least 30 days from recovering from COVID before receiving the vaccine. If they say your antibodies are in your system for up to 90 days, which is why they're not seeing any reinfection prior to 90 days. So if they're at least 30 days out of COVID positive, then they're good to get the vaccine. But if they're within that 30-day window, they're saying don't get the vaccine at this point.
So you still need the vaccine,
Absolutely.
even if you've had it. And then how long is the vaccine supposedly good for?
I have not heard the length of it. I don't know when they're looking at second rounds. I heard 2 years, I heard 1 year, I've heard various things, so I don't know what the actual answer is at this point.
Okay.
I'm not sure that they've sent that out as an official word yet.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yes, we wanted to come to council tonight first, and then we were going to publish some information on the website, which we can direct them to and to some of our social accounts, but we just wanted to make sure that we had briefed you guys first.
Okay, council, any other comments? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Scott?
Yes, that's a good job on the information. Thank you. So the backlog on page 2, what's the backlog? How far back does it go?
Well, on a regular basis, we are approximately a week, 7 to 10
Oh, that's
days
not bad. Yes.
Regularly, the data is about 7 to 10 days old.
Okay.
So I think that, over the holiday period when there's, just things being closed, the testings being closed and then opened, and then, people being, it's just a multitude of things that happen over the holiday period that I think created just another backlog where.
A couple months ago, it was not a week or 10 days. It was like 3 months. The backlog, it was ridiculous. And San Antonio, they were going way back. So thank you, by the way, and I hope that's the case. That's fantastic if it is, because it's really surging right now. The fatality rate is low, 0.007. That's pretty fantastic, 100th of a percent. That's very good news. What's the positivity rate right now?
The positivity rate for, they've started looking at molecular versus antigen positivity rates, and there's a significant difference, I know, there's a significant difference between those right now. I think I'm sorry, and I didn't put those on there today. I think the state positivity was around 14% for the antigen test, and for the molecular, it was a little over 20%. And I think for each of the counties, so for Guadalupe, I know Guadalupe, I heard on a hospital call this afternoon, was 23% positivity, and they're all right about that same.
About what?
23%.
23?
Positivity.
Okay.
And all the counties are pretty in line with their positivity rates right now.
Yeah, I know the governor wants us to come under 15, right?
I'm sorry?
The governor, Abbott, wants us, the positivity rate to be.
So those are two different numbers. The positivity rate is like the number of tests versus.
I know what it is, and I don't want to, I need Reader's Digest version. I don't mean to, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to be rude.
Two different numbers. The 15% is related to hospitalization. So the number of people in a hospital that are COVID positive. We want that number to stay under 15 so that our hospital systems are not stressed.
Right.
Testing positivity is a different.
That's what I was asking. What's the testing positivity?
It's at about 23%,
Okay.
which happens to be very similar to a hospitalization rate.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. One of the things, Dr. Brown, I wanted to suggest putting this on the website, so I think that's fantastic. Page 10, there's 1,318 people in the Bexar County hospitals. That's 20%. That would mean that there's only 6,590 beds, right? I mean, how can that be? That does not make sense mathematically to me. Help me understand that. I'm not understanding this at all.
So the beds available also has to do with the staff available.
Oh, I know that. Yeah, that's so intellectually dishonest. Oh, my gosh. And that's not on you or anything. I'm just saying when you read in the news, it just is like the sky is falling and we're at 85% and only, it's just who's on staff. It's like going to Olive Garden and the restaurant's half empty. Bring more people in. So this is not the hospital beds in the city. Got it. Okay, I think I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, council, any other comments? No comments? Just one thing I'd like for you to clarify. You mentioned that if you get the vaccine, you can still be a carrier, so the face mask will still be recommended.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, so as we do these vaccines, the one thing that they really want us to stress and make sure that we are sticking to is that there is no evidence at this point that you cannot be a carrier of COVID after you've been vaccinated, and while you might be able to not contract the virus, you may be a carrier of the virus and pass it along to somebody else. So even as we continue to do the vaccinations and such, we are going to continue to encourage masking, social distancing, hand sanitizing, so that we're not continuing to pass that along, and as we, try to get to this 70% of community vaccination.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Hall. All right. We'll continue with the roll call confirmation. Our City Secretary, Brenda Dennis, will provide us roll call confirmation for consent agenda items 1, 2, and 3, and discussion items 4, 5, and 6. Ms. Dennis?
Yes, Mayor, I did want to note that not a motion, but there was a vote to include including the address on the hearing of residents' name and address to state. The motion was, yes, to include the address, and council members Davis, Whitaker, Scagliola, Hayward, and Brown voted yes to include the address. Mayor Pro Tem Scott and Councilmember Dalla voted no. So it did pass. So you did have the residents include their address. That being said, consent agenda items 1 through 3, a motion was made by Councilmember Dalla, seconded by Councilmember Brown. Mayor Pro Tem Scott, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes, no one voted no, motion passed. Item number 4, accept the resignation of Mr. Bob Cantu, reappoint Councilmember Dalla and Mr. Gary Inman, and appoint City Councilmember Whitaker to fill the vacancy of the resignation of Bob Cantu. Motion was made by Councilmember Dalla, seconded by Councilmember Davis. Mayor Pro Tem Scott, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 5, resolution number 20R03. Motion was made by Dr. Scagliola, seconded by Councilmember Hayward. Mayor Pro Tem Scott, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed. Item number 6, ordinance number 21S01 on first reading. A motion was made by Councilmember Brown, seconded by Councilmember Whitaker. Mayor Pro Tem Scott, Councilmembers Davis, Whitaker, Dalla, Scagliola, Hayward, and Brown voted yes. No one voted no. Motion passed.
All right, thank you, Ms. Dennis. All right, we have a couple of closed sessions. Item number 9, the City Council will meet in closed session under Section 551.074 of the Texas Governmental Code, Personal Matters, to conduct an annual evaluation of our City Secretary, Brenda Dennis. And item number 10, the City Council will meet in closed session under Section 551.087 of the Texas Governmental Code, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations, closed meeting. The governmental body is now required to conduct an open meeting to discuss deliberation regarding the commercial financial information that the governmental body has received from a business prospect that the governmental body seeks to have locate, stay, or expand in the near the territory of the governmental body and with which the governmental body is conducting economic development negotiations, or to deliberate the offer of a financial or other incentive to a business prospect. This is in reference to Project E-064. The time is now 7:36. We will reconvene after our deliberation or discussion. Yes, we will meet in the back room. Yes, no, there's no need for you to depart. Yeah, you can leave your stuff. 9:23, we reconvene into our regular session. We had discussion on item number 9, the evaluation of our city secretary, Brenda Nednes, and that was between 7:41 to about 8:45. And then we had discussion on Project E064 from 8:50 to 9:20. And that's just so that our residents would know how long we discuss the issues. At this point, there is no action required from council. So we'll go ahead and move on. There is no roll call confirmation needed in this situation either. So we go down to the requests and announcements. Announcements by our city manager, Dr. Brown. Okay. Council, is there any items that need to be updated or information requested from staff? Yes, Councilmember Dollar.
When we had our special workshop there about the spam project there a few weeks ago, I thought, when we have our discussion coming up as to what direction we're going to go, if we could also get an update on what's been going on with Schertz Parkway. Thank you.
Okay, any possible actions that we want to put on future agenda items, council? Yes, Councilmember Scagliola.
Yeah, I know last year we had some really excellent updates from the different city departments, and I'd love to continue the opportunity for some of our departments to present the highlights for the year or where they're going in the future. I talked to Dr. Brown about that before. That's all I have.
Okay. Dr. Brown, is that part of our retreat? I thought that was going to be part of our... Okay. All right, thank you. All right. And we'll go down to announcements by our council member, Mayor Pro Tem Scott.
None at this time.
Council member Davis.
Nothing, sir.
Council member Whitaker.
Nothing, sir.
Council member Dollar.
Just want to thank Assistant Manager Mr. Kilm with assisting me with a problem that a resident had, and so thank you for your work on that.
All right, Council member Scagliola.
Happy New Year, all.
Council member Hayward.
Nothing, sir.
Council member Brown.
Nothing tonight, thank you.
Okay, the time is now 9:25. We stand adjourned.